See, how's Mr. Chip Pickering doing? Aren't you glad you're not in Congress right now?
You know, I count my blessings every day.
You could be next door to AOC.
I believe Congressman Guest is.
He was, but he moved out of that. I think she moved or he moved. I think she moved down. So he didn't get a chance to hear all of that wisdom anymore. Wisdom that you can just listen and hear that wisdom.
The law that was passed in Texas. Mm-hmm. We know that none of this is about life. Mm-hmm. None of this is about supporting life. Mm-hmm. What this is about is controlling women's bodies. Mm-hmm. This is about making sure that someone like me as a woman or any menstruating person in this country cannot make decisions over their own body.
No comment necessary on that one. As far as the office is going, what's happening at your office? For people who don't know, your group is called the what?
My group is called INCOMPAS.
INCOMPAS, that's it.
So I run an association, and we represent the leading tech companies in the country, like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Netflix. But we also have all the leading infrastructure broadband companies that are doing both 5G, fiber networks around the country. So it's distinct in that we have both the network and the tech applications and content.
The relationship right now with the U.S. and China, is it better or worse than the Trump administration?
It's worse. And some emerging threats in Congress are beginning to also give us troubling signs. Yeah. That just as we're emerging into this new rivalry with China, I shouldn't say new, but as it accelerates and it becomes that much more important to our economy and to our national security, there's a slate of bills that would really change the way that we do antitrust in a way that could really cripple and stifle our leading tech companies, just at a time when China has 10 of the top 20 tech companies in the world, 4 of the top 10. And the question is going to be for U.S. policymakers, will we continue to lead the world in innovation and technology, or will we cede that by bad laws at the wrong time that really will contain not communist China but American technology?
We had a person in office that kept them off their guard a little bit, that made them a little bit disheveled. Didn't know exactly what this guy was going to do. He was as crazy to them as maybe the leader in North Korea is to us, which was not a bad thing. But, I mean, I'm hearing things, and I'm not saying it's on the dark web or whatever, but I'm hearing that China might make a move and soon on Taiwan. What the hell would what would that do to us? Certainly as far as our microchips are concerned.
Well, we already have a supply chain problem with chips, with materials, with all types of different sectors of our economy. If Taiwan does become the next target for the Chinese, how do we respond? We have an alliance. We have a commitment. We have treaties that we have.
How do you think we'll respond as far as the Biden administration is concerned?
I can't predict what the Biden administration will do, but it is in our strategic interest to keep Taiwan free and to protect that part of the Pacific. And this is where the emerging threat of the communist Chinese has to be taken very, very seriously from a national security, from the Pacific Rim, and from our technology sector. So we cannot afford to lose ground to them now or any time in the near future.
Yeah, your company head and your concern and everybody else has got to be worried about this simply because they're in the driver's seat now. They've got the Biden administration doing whatever they want to. For the most part, it's what it seems like. He can talk tough, but it's not happening. And my understanding is they're filling in the void rather quickly as far as Afghanistan is concerned.
We had to be fair to Biden, you had President Trump who was going to withdraw as well. Mm-hmm. I think having a constant light presence.
To be fair there. Yeah. He had spoken before, and he said it again after that. If they had to do the things that they were supposed to do. If not, we would stay there another 3 months, 6 months, or 3 years, whatever.
That is correct. The conditions had to be met.
Right.
So it was a conditional withdrawal, which was the right way to do it. Mm-hmm. But you now have a situation where we don't have the same type of base of operation, base of capability to protect our interest in that region and to check the Chinese, to check Pakistan, to check terrorism around that part of the world and that region.
Ollie North, and I haven't heard from him in a long time, but Ollie North had this to say the other day. I think it was over the weekend on Fox.
Veterans of this war, Gold Star families, those who had been there when this whole incredibly aborted operation took place, and everybody wants one thing, and that's accountability. Hopefully there's going to be accountability as to why they gave away Bagram, one of the best military bases in the world. In fact, I know the engineer who built it. The Russians started it, we finished it. It was one of the finest military installations in the world. There was intelligence collection, there was a main base, easily defended, all the kinds of surveillance you would need to protect it with a relatively modest number of troops. Why did they give it away? It wasn't taken by the Taliban, it was given to the Taliban. And you showed some of the footage of the cash that was left there, the $84 billion worth of weapons, most of which were stored at Bagram. All of that left behind, none of it destroyed. When you look at that cachet that we gave to the Taliban, and it's not just the Taliban, it's ISIS, it's Al-Qaeda, it's the Haqqani organization, they are all one. And right at this very minute, they are sitting in the presidential palace in downtown Kabul, going through information that the GRU from Russia and the Communist Chinese Intelligence Service is helping to collect on targeting those who are our allies. We still have NATO allies with people left behind. The promise was, at the very beginning of this, no Americans left behind. It was a blatant lie.
So, as we were saying before, China's happy about this.
We're weakened in the region as a result of the way that we withdrew, and there's no question. Now the question going forward is, how do we reestablish trust and credibility with our allies, with NATO, with the countries of that region? How do we have a national security policy that promotes strength and confidence and trust and not weakness, that then could destabilize that region? And if we have any lessons learned from when we withdrew from Iraq and then ISIS came in and it spread to Syria, spread to Libya, the whole region was destabilized. The risk of us having to go back because civil war and terrorism and instability erupts now in the region is much higher, much greater.
If it happens to be a real and present danger, if that phone call came in from the security people to Biden and said, look, they're going to be moving on Taiwan, I think if Joe picks up the phone, the NATO phone, and calls anybody, any member, they're just not even going to answer the phone. We need your hip. No, it's not going to happen. I want to ask you a couple of other questions as far as broadband. How are we doing? And also a couple of other things as far as the CEO of INCOMPAS. It's the one and only Chip Pickering. Back with more. In the house is the CEO of INCOMPAS. It's Chip Pickering. We were talking about broadband, and we're doing a good job on broadband. There's a lot of money floating around there. I think everybody's worried about now, how do we use it? Are we using it efficiently? And we don't want to return any back to Washington.
That's correct. And what we need to do as Mississippi is look at what is our strategic advantage. Mm-hmm. And compared to Alabama, Tennessee, Louisiana, all of our neighbors, Mississippi has more fiber in the ground than any state in the region because of C-Spire and a home headquartered company driving competition. So AT&T and Comcast and now REA, the Rural Electric Associations, and everyone is trying to respond and compete and build new networks of both fiber and 5G. So we could be the strategic digital crossroads of the South if we're smart and if we have good policies and we really build out and connect every Mississippian, but also look at the applications of the future. What are those going to be, and how can Mississippi be first in region? So autonomous vehicles, precision agriculture, telemedicine and telehealth, artificial intelligence and quantum computing. We have 5 great high-performance computing centers in our state at Ole Miss State, Jackson State, Vicksburg, and Stennis. If we have the fiber networks and the high-capacity, high-speed networks, then we can lead the region and be first in region in these critical future applications of the future economy.
So what I think I hear you say, and Chip Pickering's my guest, what I think I hear you say is that there are so many good things happening. If we can combine all of those things, add some other ingredients to it, and I know this sounds far-fetched, but we could become our own kind of Silicon Valley to this next generation of technology.
We could. And Zayo, which is a member company of INCOMPAS, just completed a high-speed, high-capacity underground fiber network that connects Atlanta to Dallas, and then New Orleans to Chicago. And the crossroad is Jackson, Mississippi. And Amazon has a major distribution center in Madison County, but they also just announced that they're going to do a solar farm in Scott County, right outside of Forest. We're poised and positioned, Senator Wicker and many others, Haley Verzakli with Entergy, our fiber companies, our infrastructure companies. How do we have a data center strategy where you have high investment of the storage and distribution centers of data that comes from all over the world and all over our region and from Atlanta to Dallas, so that we store the data, quickly get it out into the marketplace, and whether it is a bank or a business, large or small, or for our hospitals and healthcare, if we have the distribution centers, data centers, and the fiber networks, and we can get there faster than anybody else, then we can have the applications of the future right here in central Mississippi, and the innovation, the investment, the new startups and jobs that can come with that, that really is the future. And we're positioned strategically, and because we have the most fiber than any state in the region, that we can really lead the future economy and the future workforce and the future investment.
So then you take your other assets that many people don't talk about, but we have areas that have good schools. For instance, in the Jackson metro area, very good schools.
Yes.
Low crime, good medical services. Those are the things people want. Restaurants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In any rural area, they're lacking, but that's the same as any other state. Plus the fact we have something called the cost of living, number one, the lowest in the United States of America. So if you're bringing somebody out of New York or California, those are the things that they're going to look for. Then you have the other subsequent fill-in of jobs, and that's workforce development.
Very much so. And in my work, which prior to COVID was almost all in Washington, I've been virtual for the last year. You can now work remotely and virtually. And if you have good networks, if you have good broadband connectivity, people from all over the country can move to Mississippi with a low cost, high quality of living, good community opportunities just to raise your family and to enjoy a community life that is second to none, if we have the connectivity.
Yeah. Is that what your company does, though, kind of lobbying to bring these together?
Yes, and the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill that just passed the Senate was something that we really focused on. And we partnered on a bipartisan basis with Mignon Clyburn, who is a former Democrat FCC commissioner. We ran a campaign called the Broadlands, bringing broadband to every American. And we have companies that are building those networks all across the country and in Mississippi. And so we have an opportunity with our state where we're located, and because we have the infrastructure that is second to none in the region, that we really can be first in region. But we do need to coordinate, and Mississippi does not have a broadband office. Many other states have set up a broadband office. I would really encourage our leaders in Mississippi. Senator Wicker and Senator Hyde-Smith have really been leaders on getting the federal funds sent to Mississippi, and we're going to have about $200 to $300 million just for broadband. And just like in the Depression era, when we decided as a country that we would build electricity to every home or connect every home and every business to electricity, the country is now making that same type of commitment on broadband.
Where do you place that agency, as a standalone or within an existing agency?
You know, I believe the Mississippi Development Authority, MDA, is the best place, because this is really our economic strategy that will drive all sectors of our economy, connect all sectors of our economy, and hopefully every Mississippian. So MDA, I think, is the right place to do this.
I do know that C Spire's footprint continues, and they're working feverishly on that to expand that out. As a matter of fact, they're even moving into Alabama, and that's an asset that just it's incredible, absolutely incredible.
You know, the great thing, if you look at Mississippi's history, Comcast started in Tupelo, Mississippi.
That's right,
the largest cable company in the world. When WorldCom was at its peak, we had the largest internet backbone company in the world. SkyTel is
I forgot about SkyTel.
We're the birthplace of both blues and texting. And now C Spire really is the regional tech fiber leader that is driving innovation in Mississippi and now in Alabama.
They were, and I'm sure they still are, probably even more so, the largest privately owned.
That is correct.
In the United States of America, as far as telecommunications is concerned.
And we need to use that as our strategic comparative advantage to all other states in our region. Nobody else has a home-headquartered fiber and wireless company and a tech company that then drives the innovation. But also, if you look at what was just passed in the state legislature to have a STEM curriculum for every elementary and high school student in Mississippi, we can begin educating and training a workforce that really helps all of our companies, all of our businesses that are going to be technology-based. And so our education, our communities, our institutions, all are strengthened when you have a good company like that. Sanderson Farms is another example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see the need for what you're talking about, and I can't do it. I'm busy on the air, but somebody's got to put this all together. I hope you guys are doing it. I hope somewhere out there, we're just not talking about this. I hope they're putting all this stuff together, from the universities to the Stennis Space Center to all of these folks are putting this together. Is that happening, or is it needs to happen? Is that a reality?
It needs to happen.
Who's going to put that together?
I do think that our state leaders are in the preliminary stages of trying to put something together. COVID, the American Rescue Act, all of the legislation over the pandemic, we now have somewhere between $2 billion and $6 billion of funds that we have to decide, okay, how do we have a once-in-a-generational opportunity to build the infrastructure and the institutions that drive the future and win the future for Mississippi? And we do need a strategic, organized, focused vision for how those resources will be invested.
I'm a little confused on the Taiwan thing, to double back on that, circle back, as Psaki says. Taiwan builds most of these chips, these smart chips, but don't we get the rare earth metals from China? Or do they have rare earth metals there?
We do get a lot of our rare earth metals from China. Yeah. And how do we diversify our supply chain and bring a lot of our supply chain back to the U.S.?
And we do have those elements in the ground here, but apparently the environmentalists are causing some problems extracting them from American soil, is what I heard. Is that what you heard, or is that do we have what is needed here?
I think we have more of what is needed than what we are now producing.
Always good seeing you, sir.
It's great to see you.
Chip Pickering, CEO of INCOMPAS. If you want more information, you got it on the website?
Yes.
Under
INCOMPAS, our broadland, USA.com.